about the music, because we are really lucky with all the people who play and sing and play drums and play the piano and lead karaoke. And I want to say that I want to reiterate what Kyle said. It's like two great minds, but a single thought about if you, like Jerry wanted to sing songs and he got up and he's leading them. And that is awesome. And if you want, I'm not saying y'all have to lead songs, but if you have a song you want to sing, like an old hymn, a new hymn, maybe that new song by Lizzo, whatever it is, we can do it for you. But we want to know what you want. So you got to come to us with what you want to sing. And I happen to really love that. His Eyes on the Sparrow, and Jerry, who's always trying to make, he because of me, he's trying to make the songs more unity, so he changed the words to make it, and then, and that also wants me to mention that, sometimes it's all okay, it's what people think about God, God inside, God outside, God's eye on the sparrow. It is all our way we approach God, because none of us have the whole picture. However we look at God, it's all good. Now, we are going to do some energy work. I tell you, you're gonna sweat after this. So we're gonna do the smiling work. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to fake smile. Okay? Fake smile. Everybody, come on, fake smile like you're a jackal. Come on, a little more. Fake smile like you're a used car salesman. Come on, a little more. Fake smile like you're going to ask me for a raise. Come on. All right. Whew. Oh, okay. You guys are great. I got 10 reasons to smile. And first, I'm going to say, if you're not smiling, you're like the person who has $1 million in the bank and they can't remember their password for their debit card. Yeah. So smiling makes us attractive. We are drawn to people who smile. And here's the deal. Frowns and grimaces and, stoic faces actually kind of deters people from approaching us. I noticed that from walking around the lake or running around the lake, whatever it is I'm doing around the lake. I lots of times have a big smile on my face because I'm so happy to be outside. And people smile back. On the days if I maybe be kind of crabby or whatever, it's like, I feel the energy. I feel the difference. Now, 2, smiling relieves stress. Believe it or not, even fake smiling, what we just did, fake smiling changes our brain and can relieve stress. The worse things are, the more we should smile. Smiling elevates our mood. Fake smiling again, or, go ahead and smile. It actually changes our brain. It reminds us that we actually have a smile inside. A simple smile can trigger the release of neural communication boosting neuropeptides, fancy, as well as mood boosting neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Well, we all know that we want some dopamine and serotonin. So smiling, like physical exercise, is a natural antidepressant. Here's the other thing, smiling is contagious. I don't know if you've seen the meme going around. It's a bunch of smiley faces, and in the middle, actually, there are a bunch of frowny faces. The smiley faces. It's a GIF. I mean a GIF, whatever it is, whatever that word is. GIF. Thank you. There's a bunch of red, angry faces, and in the middle is a little, like about 20 red, angry faces, and in the middle is a smiley face. And then the smiley face, the yellow smiley face is smiling, and then gradually all the angry red frowny faces turn yellow, and then they start smiling. So the one smiley face in the middle was contagious to all the red, angry, frowny faces. The part of our brain that is responsible for controlling the facial expression is an unconscious automatic response area. So that if we actually smile, it can completely trigger all the neuropeptides and so on, which also, number 5, boosts our immune system. So smiling makes our overall health better, which means we should see as many funny shows as we can, or tell each other good, funny jokes that make us laugh. Smiling lowers your blood pressure. What? Yes, actual smiling lowers your blood pressure. Give it a try if you have a blood pressure monitor at home. Smiling makes us feel good with the serotonin. And here's a good one. Smiling makes you look younger. I know this for a fact because I have looked in the mirror. And definitely, like when I look in the mirror, the frowny face, I look 10 years older. The smiley face, 10 years younger. So I know it's true. And some of you don't care, but some of you do. Smiling makes you seem successful. It gives the impression of confidence. And smiling helps you stay positive. It helps us lift our mood. Now, that was really just a little bit of reasoning why I would want us to fake smile. And why it's one of those tools that actually works because of the way our brain works. Now, what I want to talk about, it's funny, this was most of the time I write my talks. I get the idea for the talk, and sometimes I write them a week ahead. I usually always figure them out by Wednesday before the Sunday. This was one of those times where I had a complete talk, and then I knew it was going to happen last night. I could feel that talk was not going to happen today. And I woke up and I knew that for whatever reason, that was not the talk I was going to give, and that I had to reformulate the talk for today. All I can say is that is because it did not feel authentic. The thing I had written wasn't up for me. It didn't feel authentic. It wasn't what I was supposed to teach. So and the talk was about miracles, and I was going to talk about my miracle, like a miracle that happened to me. And then I realized that wasn't the teaching I wanted to teach about miracles, that everybody has beautiful, wonderful stories that are miraculous in their life. And I wanted to share something personal. And I still will share some personal stuff, but that wasn't the teaching. The teaching wasn't about the wonderful thing that happened to me or you or anyone. As we've been exploring the topic of miracles, one of the things I remember is that miracles really in the Bible are signs and wonders to point to God's presence in our lives. And so the miracle itself is lovely and wonderful, but that's not actually the teaching, because we do all have miracles, and that's good. It's wonderful. But the miracle is not a reward. You don't get a miracle as a reward. Let me say that. But I wanted to say that when I really got into my heart, the miracle of my life, it feels dramatic, but it's not a really dramatic story. The miracle of my life is connecting to God, that to actually connect to Source or Spirit or God. That's the miracle of my life. That is when everything changed like night and day for me. And it did kind of happen in bits and bobs. I was not a happy kid. For whatever reason, I just was not the happiest kid on the block. I had loving parents. There were 8 kids. I was the oldest. We all had our reasons. Everybody did their best. But I was kind of angsty and miserable, so I wasn't a happy kid. I did not wake up happy, and I thought I should, which I think is a good sign. But the very first connection I felt to Source, that I really felt like this must be God, and I've told this story before, was singing around a campfire at summer camp. You know, we happened to be singing camp songs, but I felt a oneness and a connection where I didn't know what it was, though, because I was just 8. That's the first time I felt connected to God. And then another thing happened to me in 5th grade that was to me, a dramatic moment. It was an intellectual understanding of God. I'm in religion class, and my Catholic school, Our Lady of Fatima was the name of that Catholic school. Just picture me in 5th grade. I had a navy blue itchy wool skirt, a navy blue itchy wool sweater, and a white Peter Pan blouse, saddle shoes, knee socks. It was a look. And I'm reading my religion, something about God, and I say to myself, if God is all loving, I don't see how he can send anyone to hell. And I went home and I asked my mom, who was a wonderful mystical Catholic, and she said, I don't believe that either. I don't think anyone goes to hell. God is all loving. So that was cool. That was an intellectual understanding that made sense to me, and I will say that it echoed a knowing I had, but I didn't have the words for that, and I didn't even have the comprehension for that. I really didn't. No, I didn't get it. So then I was seeking for a spiritual connection, but I wasn't really finding it. I remember the first day I moved away from my parents' house, and I had gone to Mass faithfully, and I'd been in my Catholic high school. I was 18. And I had thought that I was going to Mass because I wanted to. And the very first Sunday I didn't have to, I didn't go. And I said, wow, I really was going because they made me. And I was surprised. And I didn't go much after that, which was surprising to me. But I was still seeking spiritually, but I didn't know what I was doing. And some things, I think at one point, toward the end of college, I think it might have been 5 or 6 years in college, because I worked too, just for the 4-year degree, but I was working. Around the 6th year of college, I had a roommate who started feeding me these books, like Be Here Now by Ram Dass, and this particular book called Das Energy, which these books just were speaking of something more, and to me they were speaking of a connection to God. I knew I wanted it, but I knew I kind of had it, but I didn't have a context. I didn't have a community. I didn't really feel connected to God. So, I think the teaching now that we teach over and over again is we're always connected to God. We just don't know it. But I didn't know it. I really didn't know it then. But I knew I did kind of know I wanted it. Well, there was something I read in the book Das Energy that really felt like a connection to God. And I do remember I had a social work class, and I was supposed to write a paper with 2 other people. So we gave our presentation, and I completely threw my presentation out because I had just read this thing that I thought was so important. Everybody needed to know it, about how we were connected, how there was no sin, basically, how there was no evil. And the professor of the social work class, later, he told me he thought I was having a nervous breakdown, because I was so off topic, and I was just so, emotionally connected to what I was trying to say, because I'd been hit by this, to me, that seemed like this great big truth, and I really didn't have any context, and I apparently wasn't really good at explaining it either. So later when I found that out, I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. That was after I'd seen him, after the class was done. But I do remember feeling physically almost shaky from, recognizing the truth of some kind of connection to spirit. Well, then I got married. My husband and I, we moved to San Francisco. I had a child. My husband and I, part of why I remember I liked him is he had Be Here Now in the back of his truck. So it's one of the things I was attracted to him about. But I didn't have a community. I didn't have a context. And then I got divorced, and I do feel as if that was one of the times I said a prayer and didn't know it. When I got divorced, I was feeling pretty depressed, and at one point I was feeling so bad about myself. I feel as if either I went back in time or some kind of angel came to me. I had a really bad night. I was feeling awful, and then the next morning it was like the depression and the anxiety lifted, and as if there was comfort. And then I could carry on, Then it would come back, but I could carry on because I'd had that space. And I just believe that was some, some angelic, some beautiful God source helping me at the time. And so then here I am. I'm a little out of sync time-wise, but I get divorced. I was living in San Francisco. I bring my son Kelly back to Seattle, and I'm staying with my family of origin. And I'm thinking, it's like I said, what is going to keep me from redoing this pattern of looking for happiness and being in a relationship that isn't working out? And I believe that was a prayer, because then that prayer got answered. And, this is embarrassing. I am such a boomer, because I found a self-help workshop, which wasn't est, but it was fairly est-like. I don't know if in the 80s, that was just what was happening. Everybody was taking est, especially in San Francisco. Est is the Erhard seminar trainings. Did anybody remember est? Yeah, somebody, yeah. Yeah, and it was they're not around as much in the same way, but there were big trainings. People would go to the trainings. People would make fun of people going to the trainings, and people would learn to be empowered. And the training I went to was the LRT, got to have initials, Loving Relationships training. And here's the beautiful miracle. So I was in there because I wanted to fix my relationships. And when you take that seminar, the Loving Relationship training is all about, you learn about, it's your relationship with yourself, right? That seems basic. And then a miracle happened to me, a really big miracle. I learned about the concept of enlightenment in that seminar. That seminar, the people who wrote that seminar were connected with A Course in Miracles and connected to a spiritual teacher called Babaji, and connected to the spiritual part of finding your true self. That particular seminar had a very spiritual component. And so it's a weekend workshop. You go in Friday, you go in Saturday, you do all this stuff, you work on yourself. And I was like so wanting a relationship and so wanting to be healed. And so that was totally right up my alley. Little did I know that while I was taking those relationship trainings in Seattle, Roland was taking them in Connecticut. That's a foreshadowing of part of the miracle. So I am taking that training, and Sunday morning, there's a simple exercise. You can do it with a partner, or you can do it with yourself on a piece of paper. I'm gonna invite you to remember it and do it with yourself on a piece of paper later today. But here's the exercises. A thought I have about God is. And the way we did it with a partner, I would say, a thought I have about God is, and I would think for a minute, I would say my thought. Then the other person would say, a thought I have about God is. And it seems like a very simple exercise, but here's what happened to me. All of a sudden, I recognized that I had a ton of confusing thoughts in my head about God that were existing at the same time, like that God was loving and that God was also an old man who lived in the clouds, and that God would punish me, and as well as that God was Jesus or that God wasn't Jesus. And I examined my thoughts, and I recognized how much I had built up a picture of God which was totally in the way of God. Like the thoughts I had about God were keeping me from God. And since I'd learned just the day before that there was a concept of enlightenment, which, let me say, enlightenment is nothing more or less than feeling your connection so strongly to pure source that you are altered. You're so clear that you really are divinity and you're a part of pure source, that your life changes. That's what enlightenment is. It changes everything because you are on a path with spirit or your true self. So the combination of those two things just hit me with an amazing opening of my heart. It was just amazing. And I started smiling. The rest of the day I smiled and smiled. I was staying with my son at my mom's house, and my younger brother was living there too. So I went home. It was Sunday night at 11, and he came, and I was just sitting at the table smiling, and he came down, and he was looking at me, Cindy, why are you smiling? I actually could not stop smiling. My face was sore, but I couldn't stop smiling. I felt so happy. And Kinnan, who is my lovely but very cynical atheist brother to this day, was so amazed he could see how changed I was, that he actually came to a follow-up meeting of the LR, those big training seminars always have a follow-up meeting, where you bring your friends and family. He came to one of those meetings with me because of how I was so different. And it's funny because at the time, I did kind of think it was because of the training. And yes, it was, but it wasn't just the training. It was because at that training, I was able to dump a big block about what was keeping me from being connected to God or Source. And like I said, it doesn't sound very dramatic. It's not as dramatic as what happened to Paul on the road to wherever he got cast off his horse, or Damascus, that was it. It's not as dramatic as that, but it felt that dramatic. It wasn't dramatic as Eckhart Tolle's story about waking up enlightened, and then he had to sit in the park for 2 years just to integrate all the joy in the present. But it was that dramatic to me, because then everything was different night and day. That changed everything for me. So this is what I wanted to say. That the miracle of my life, this in an encapsulation, is connecting to Source, to recognizing that, to listening to other people tell about that happening to them, so that I had a shared experience, so that I had context, and then I eventually had a community of people to share the context with. So here is my 5-step how to connect with Source, because I love making lists. 1, recognize that you can connect to pure Source. To me, it was the concept of you can be enlightened. So you can connect to pure Source. 2, ask. Ask. Keep asking. I want to connect. 3, remove the blocks. And just keep working. I remove the blocks. Do whatever you have to do to remove your preconceived ideas. 4, you have the experience. And 5, you tell your story. You tell your story. You tell your story. And that's what I want us all to do. That's why I'm up here telling us this story. And I recognize that the story was part of the miracle for me. It wouldn't have happened if people weren't telling me their story of that, whatever it was. I read a lot, I heard a lot. Most of it I get from reading, but also from each other. So, know you can do it. Keep asking. Remove the blocks. Get your experience and tell your story. And remember, a smile is a curve that helps everything straighten out. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite you to take your tithe, your love offering, your